and the opening to the chimney was just two halves. Hey guys, it's Stove Talk with Matt. This was a failure. This video goes with the last video that I uploaded. I just wanted to show you, now that the barrel's removed, I just wanted to show you the structure of the stove. The barrel sat on that piece of wood, which of course is just temporary. For the test you would use a piece of cut soapstone, but I think this is a good idea that we can incorporate into future stoves. And again, my stove test going forward will be a lot more simple. Trying to get too complicated, trying to get too cute, just going back to the simple. But this idea I think is good, can work for a lot of people. So of course you don't use wood, but you can see how this, I'll lift it off in just a second, I need two hands. But you would just put a piece of soapstone, you get it cut round and get the square cut out. And this can be incorporated to hold a barrel in a lot of different stove designs. And the main reason I'm making this video is I just want to show you, this was just as a hindrance to block the hole to get the gases to go around the other side. So let me remove these so you can see. This riser of 4 fire bricks, which leaves a chimney opening of 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. This can be put up inside a normal, was it a 55-gallon oil drum we use as barrels for rocket stoves? And the corners are tight. There's only about 1.5 inches or so at the corners. But this works. This allows plenty of draft to come down on all sides, and of course your barrel has a hole at the bottom on one of the sides. So this works, and one of the simple stoves I'll be doing going forward, because I'm tired of trying to outthink it to be too complicated. Just going to run basically a high firebox up with this holding a barrel into a riser, and it'll work great. And it's simple, and it won't smoke back. And let me lift off the wood and we'll talk about ideas for this sort of a thing or contraption to hold the barrel. Okay, there we go. I lifted the piece of wood off, and I think what I would do is I'd go to these countertop stores, granite and soapstone's big for kitchen countertops in the United States now, and I would, maybe somebody will cut you a deal, or like I said in the last video, if your brother works for a place, or who knows. Unfortunately, if they want to charge you, then they have to charge you, but whatever, they have scraps this size. I guess you'd have to pay them to do the cuts. You would get them to cut out. This is the exact same size as a barrel, plus a 1/2 inch. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it sticks out 2 inches, and that circle, the diameter of that circle is much, or radius, or I guess it would be diameter, is 2 inches sticking out larger than the barrel, that's okay. That's okay if it sticks out more. And this center cut of the square to put over the top of a standard, 4 fire brick riser, it does not have to be perfect either. You leave whoever's making the cut of soapstone for you, leave 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 inch on each side, because as you place it down over this, if it's too perfect, you're not going to be able to get it over the brick. I think I've never seen anybody do this with from a countertop store with a piece of granite or soapstone. Soapstone's the best, no doubt. And granite, I don't know the thermal properties of granite, how it heats up, or I'm sure it's not going to have a problem with the heat, but soapstone's best because it takes in the heat and it slowly lets out the heat. And I think I'd want the diameter to be out 2 inches and have it, the more it sticks out, fine, then it's just going to radiate heat out a little bit better. Oh, regarding the piece of wood or or the soapstone, whatever the round cutout object you'd use to hold the barrel. You could rig up something like this. This whole section here on the side, this isn't part of the stove. This wall exists, and then this stack exists simply to hold your shelf for the barrel. And you might have to do things like this depending on what your stove design is. This is a little bit easier. This is another shelf to hold the barrel at this level, but it's a little bit easier because it's just this row of bricks, starting on you're resting on the stove, the parts of the stove that already exist. But obviously the wood is loaded in here, and I'll show you one more video at the bottom how the gas is exited into this basically back riser, which is just like this riser, 4.5 by 4.5. Comes up, hits the ceiling, 2-brick ceiling here, 2-row. Hope it's so glare, guys. I can't even see what I'm filming. 2-row opening, or 2-brick opening. Sorry. Gases come up this riser, 2-brick opening. They flow over these bricks. They go down here, 4 bricks, and then a 2-brick opening. I know you can't see that. Maybe you can. 2-brick opening at the bottom, and then up this final riser, which went up into the barrel. And I think it worked a little bit better, of course, without the barrel, but it wasn't completely no smoke. It smoked a little bit. And the main thing, it was smoke free for a while. I didn't like how the smoke wanted to come out that door a bit. That's what's kind of sunk the idea of this stove. Don't like it when I can't add wood whenever I want. If anybody's like, well, the design of the last stove, the last video, was a failure, why are you spending so much time on this? Again, like, there was a lot of reasons. It wasn't totally a failure. There's other designs to do instead of this. There's other designs that offer more advantages than this. So this worked. One of the reasons we do this, guys, and I'm doing this, is just to show people that may be new, not everybody's an expert, what's possible. You can do any stove design with just these fire bricks, just stacking. You don't need any skills. You don't need any, you don't need any buttering of bricks or masonry skills or cement or mortar skills. You can do any, just stacking these fire bricks. Luckily in the United States, they're symmetrical. If they weren't symmetrical, none of these stove ideas, just stacking, would be possible. 2 up and 1 over is exactly the same. This is not the case with red brick. So thankfully these fire bricks are 1 over is the same as 2 up exactly. When you do this with red brick, it doesn't match up. Which means all these stove ideas, you can create anything you can come up with in your imagination. Okay, this is the main stove without all the supports, without all the bricks holding up the shelf that holds the barrel, so it's much smaller. I really like stoves that are just 2 fire bricks across, which means the opening to the firebox is only 1 fire brick across, just 9. It seems like that would be too skinny, but you know what? Skinny and high burns up smoke. A firebox that's too wide creates a lot of smoke because all this cold air rushes in, it doesn't heat up. A concentrated firebox, or a skinny firebox that concentrates and reflects the heat back, burns up more smoke. If this is high enough, it's plenty. And it makes, the main thing I wanted to say is it makes, for the amateur, all these stove designs possible. It makes it easy with no cuts. They're just 2 bricks. These designs are just 2 bricks wide. That's it, just 2 fire bricks. And you can have hundreds and hundreds of designs on your own without being an expert. The sky's the limit in terms of what you can imagine, as long as you keep to your general draft principles. I like this thin firebox a lot, I really do. And it wants to go smoke free very quickly, unlike a wide firebox. And eventually you can get a small riser to work with a larger firebox without any lintels, without any angle irons, without any supports, just by stacking bricks. Now once you go wider, if you go another half brick and you can't just go one meets one, then you need lintels and you need creative design to hold your shelves up, and it just gets much more complicated. I think this is great for the novice. Here's a basic principle of a lot of successful stove design. Fire comes up, some sort of riser in the back. This is as small as it gets, of course, for a riser. I admit this is on the small side. You know, not every stove is going to want this, of course, but it works, and it doesn't draft exactly like a rocket stove, but it works, and it drafts good. Up the riser, over this hump, which is just, of course, just a wall of bricks going down. Give it 2 bricks to get over, down, under 5 bricks, and then up. So basic principle that the Russians have been incorporating for hundreds of years, however big your risers are, is up the back. This back wall, of course, is part of the riser. Then you clear the top 2, over, hits a wall, has to go down, 2 brick opening at the bottom, up this riser. Up, down, up, snake. Principle of successful Russian heaters for hundreds of years. Now, using half bricks is necessary, at least 5 to 10 at the minimum. This stove has more like 20 half bricks. Some you can get away with a very small number of half bricks, but every once in a while you run into some. You have to make something like this and you need a half, and need a half. And luckily these fire bricks are very soft, and you can't do that with a chisel. It'll be all over the place. You could use a cheap tile wet saw. I removed the guard on mine, but you shouldn't do that. And I like the wet saw because this fire brick is sand and silica, and you do not want to breathe it. Much more dangerous to breathe a fire brick than a red brick. Sand and silica. I like the wet saw to keep the dust down, but you could use a circular saw, of course, if you have full mask protection with a diamond masonry bit. Or these things cut easy compared to regular bricks. Well, if you're going to use just a regular wet saw, or not a regular circular saw, 7.5 inch blade, soak the brick for 10 minutes in a bucket. Get it as wet as possible. That'll help a bit, but you don't even have to do that. Just wear your mask. What turned me off to this stove, which was from the last video, was the smoke that came out the door when I opened the door, because it drafts out the back up this small riser. You can get away with this. It seems like it's too small. As long as you have a riser, like a little rocket stove riser, as long as you take that up 14, 15 rows or something like that, you can get away with that, even if it seems too small. You'll have less smoke. If you do a full brick riser in the back, with a stove like this, with air from the front and a low ceiling firebox, too much air gets pulled through too quickly, which too much air causes smoke, because it becomes an air conditioning in the back of the stove, unless it's really loaded up with a lot of wood, but then it'll smoke as it starts to die down. You can get away with that, but you need to build that up, I don't know, at least 10 more levels or so. And then the rest of your stove can just be a brick and a half. It doesn't even have to be 2 bricks. And the opening to the chimney was just 2 halves, and then it had to wrap around. It had to wrap around to the left to get up that riser. And just trying to create turbulence to cut out, to eat up some smoke. And it worked, but it didn't work quite as well as I thought. It was a little bit of turbulence. I think it helped a bit. If it just goes straight up the riser, you have more smoke because things exit too quickly. What happened was the fact that it had to find the chimney that low. You need a tremendous amount of draft when you do something like that, because initially the smoke and the flame rises, and it rose up a little bit. I mean, it was mostly being sucked back, but some of it was rising up, and smoke was being trapped at the top, and the bricks at the top were cold or cool, because my test was only 20 minutes, and then that makes more smoke. Low temperatures make more smoke. So when I opened the door, the smoke poured out. It's possible if I would have just if I opened that brick up and made that also access to the riser, it doesn't help that much, because the riser is still only in one little square. Opening more bricks up on the right doesn't help, because you're restricted by the small square in and of itself, but it might have made it a little bit easier. The smoke and flame didn't have to dive down to get out. A little bit easier, so when you open the door in the front here, the smoke may not have poured out. There's things that could have been done. Lessons learned. It's the next day, and I was thinking how much this stove would be different if I just allowed 3 halves access into the chimney. 3 instead of 2. Or move it up a bit. If this thing didn't smoke out the front, I would think different about this stove, but it's like, do I want to 1,200 pounds with the barrel? And it's just so hard to rebuild just to make a tiny little change. I've done it before. I'm not going to do it again. But let me break the rest of this down, and we'll ponder what a higher opening would have done. Also, regarding smoke, sometimes when your opening is low, your cold gases stay low, and just cold gases may rush in. If you don't have a big enough fire, some cold gases may find the back of the stove on a low exit, which can lead to smoke. This is all you do to start the riser. Here I have 3 bricks, which blocks, makes the gases come in here and then wrap around and come up the riser. These 3 halves or full bricks going all the way across. Overall, I like this. It does create some turbulence going around the corner here and then up. It's not a batch box port. I don't think the way the stove is constructed, if I made it more of a port and closed it off more here, I don't think it would have worked. If you make a port and make a smaller opening, you really need a really large insulated riser that really pulls hard.